Hello, loves. This is your girl, Elle the Alchemist, also known as the Holistic Energy Alchemist, and welcome back to your Cosmic Sanctuary. Now we're going to continue on to the second wave of awakening. So let's get into wave two, the emotional wisdom phase. There's a point in awakening where information is no longer enough. The mind has gathered data, the knowledge is there. Other people's experiences have been studied, observed, and consumed. And yet, something still feels incomplete. Almost like there's a quiet emptiness underneath all of it. A sense that what you've collected is not the same as what you're actually looking for. And this is where wave two begins. Let's get in. This is the phase where consciousness starts to realize information can describe experience, but it cannot replace experience. So, what begins to happen is a shift from mental consumption into emotional confrontation because everything that was studied externally now has to be processed internally. And this is where many people feel a deeper layer emerging. Not confusion anymore, but emotional weight. A sense that something inside is asking to be felt. And just like wave one, this wave operates in layers. So let's get into the individual layer. This is where your personal emotional reality begins to surface. What was once ignored or bypassed begins to rise. Not because something is going wrong, but because something is finally being revealed. Old emotions, unprocessed experiences, subtle inner tension that was masked by thinking and information gathering. And now the body becomes the center of awareness, the collective layer. This is where emotional experience becomes shared across humanity. You begin to notice that many people are no longer just learning or thinking, they are processing. Healing language becomes common. Emotional awareness increases. Trauma, nervous system regulation, embodiment all become collective themes because the collective field is no longer expanding through information alone. It is metabolizing emotion. Now let's move to the universal layer. This is a larger field shift into emotional intelligence as a dominant phase of human evolution. If wave one was the expansion of the mind through information and questioning, wave two is the expansion of consciousness through feeling and healing. A collective movement that became especially visible in the early 2000s onward, where emotional awareness, therapy culture, trauma healing, and embodiment practices began rising globally, not as trend, but as necessity. Because consciousness was no longer only seeking answers, it was seeking completion. And in this phase, something important becomes extremely clear. Emotion is not noise, it is not a nuisance. Emotion is information from the body, it is intelligence trying to complete itself. So now, let's get into the wave two trap. But just like wave one has its loop, wave two has one too. This is where people can get stuck in emotional processing, feeling without integrating, revisiting without resolving, healing without stabilizing, or even more, beginning to identify as emotion itself. I am my pain. I am my healing journey. I am my emotional experience or emotional trauma. Because just like the mind can become a loop of information, the emotional body can become a loop of feeling and healing. But the purpose of wave two is not to stay in the emotion, it is to move through it until feeling becomes clarity, not confusion. Now let's get into the turning point. And eventually something begins to shift. Emotion stops overwhelming the nervous system and starts revealing patterns beneath it itself. There is more space, more awareness, more presence forming underneath the intensity. And for the first time, you are not inside the emotion. You are not drowning in it. You are with it. And from that space, a deeper integration begins to emerge. Not mental, not emotional, but embodied. And that is where wave three begins. And so, as I release and take a sigh of relief and gratitude, I am going to end the second wave video on that note. And we will pick back up with wave three, which will be the final wave of the three waves of awakening. I am so grateful that I am at the point in my journey that I get to share this deeply needed information with the collective right now, because a lot of people get stuck in wave one and wave two. And what that does is that keeps you from really being able to emerge into what we are actually here to be for ourselves and also for others. I thank you, and I really appreciate all who feel this frequency and who resonate with this information. It is my intention that this helps free a lot of people from getting stuck in waves one and wave two. So I love you.